Brothers, have you ever had random moments when you're alone or busy and you wish you could just drop everything, break down and weep in the arms of someone you love and trust not to see you any different? Toady9622 replying to that, my husband will cry, but in a kind of roundabout way. When his mom was diagnosed with an advanced stage of cancer, he flew out to be with her. He was gone for about 3 weeks, which was all the time it took from diagnosis to death. When he came home, he was sad but calm. His demeanor struck me as odd because he really loved his mom, and I knew watching her die had to have wrecked him. But he was giving out clear "don't press me on this" signals. A couple of weeks later, we had been up late doing some chores around the house. We weren't fighting, but we were just sniping at each other due to exhaustion. He suddenly started to tell me about his mom's ordeal, and he was silently weeping, then out and out sobbing. I hugged him, then I sat on the couch and he laid down with his head in my lap. He told me a little bit more about it, then fell sound asleep. Big Chief Gas replying to that, all the time, but I end up just holding it in and ultimately snapping at the smallest things and breaking down. I overheard these parents telling their kid how proud they are of him and hugging him, and it made me start to tear up. I had to go back into my car and reabsorb the tears before letting them drop. I know that sounds crazy, but crying was never allowed for men in my family. Even the day my grandpa died, I was slapped in the face for crying at the funeral and was told to go to the bathroom and wash my face and come back out when I'm a man. So I never really open up to anyone. I put myself in therapy now, but I still find myself thinking about my answers before I give them. BC, I don't want my therapist to look at me like less of a man. So now I just went to my doc. Apache Burrito replying to that, I'm a lonely crier. I've been the strong shoulder to cry on most of my life. Truth is, I'm a sensitive guy and I've even cried about not having anyone to cry to. But I feel a guilt about showing it, case I'm the pillar people lean on when internally I just want to cry with them. Born to Hula Toro replying to that, I actually had to do this finally just a few months ago. Granted, I was fortunate enough to have a good friend who witnessed me slowly unravel in a conversation that started with typical banter and shit talking. An hour in, I was sobbing on his shoulder. Like I said, I realize I'm fortunate to have a non-relative brother like that. Hope you find or decide on someone you can reach out to as well. Let the Rebbe more light replying to that. Oh sure, usually happens in the car for me. This is part of the reason why I do regular psychedelic healing sessions. Every time during the come up, I just weep for like 30 minutes, crying out all the shit I've been holding on to. It feels amazing. I can tell you this. Especially as a woman, I wish my boyfriend, little brother and best friend would open up to me more. I wish these boys were comfortable enough to cry in my arms. It is never embarrassing to show emotion. No matter what our dads taught us, you are no less of a man for feeling things. Cry your fucking heart out to someone who you love. I love my boys more than life itself and hope every day that they come to me to just let it all out. Life is fucking hard, man. I learned from letting my own emotions out to my boys that they care and love me. It was scary, but they were there for me. So just go for it. Hug, kiss, love, and cry whoever you can, whenever you need it. Women especially understand crying. Even for no reason, lol. Reason or not. You deserve to let those emotions out. So do it. Lurks for livin' replying to that. My sister was murdered in 2015. She was the person I would be able to park my car on the side of the road and be vulnerable. I would sometimes cry about my fears and insecurities in life and being responsible for the well-being of my kids and such. Once she was gone, I had to deal with the grief as best I could with close loved ones. Unfortunately, though now nearly 6 years removed, the suffering still happens about her death. but mostly in silence from time to time or in private, like her birthday or anniversary of her death. Now I kind of keep it to myself, more so because I don't want to open loved ones' wounds about it, or I don't want to be stigmatized as someone stuck in grief. Anyway, it's healthy to express all of our feelings and emotions. It's just important to understand where there is a safe space to do so. I know I need therapy, but something about feeling like this thing is mine to deal with. Like a life sentence, and sometimes I feel, what is this weight compared to an agonizing death? Don't know if this helps anyone or whatever, but being open, even if just anonymously, somehow makes me feel a pinch better. The little balloon replying to that, dude, find someone that will let you be like this. My sister is the one for me. I have no male friends that I would be able to break down in front of. But breaking down and being told it's okay feels as amazing as it sounds. But it's like a band-aid on a bullet wound. You can't throw that kind of weight on others regularly. It will burn them out. Pay for a therapist that their whole job is to listen to you and tell you it's okay. If you find a good one, it turns into a pseudo-relationship that it feels just as good as telling a loved one or friend. Uncle Duckjob replying to that. At 40 years old, my greatest fantasy is to lay on my back and lay my head in a woman's lap while she runs her fingers through my hair and tells me that I'm good, and that everything's gonna be okay. I have accepted that I'll probably die before I feel that. Sensual Lynx replying to that. I had a male friend sheepishly ask if I'd cuddle with him. When he told me it's been over a year since he's felt this basic level of intimacy and comfort, I truly felt bad for him. And I know I'm going to get some hell for this, but I think that men, regardless of sexual orientation, should be allowed to hug, cuddle, and hold hands with another male. It's not gay. It's a human need. The Oracle 6'5" replying to that. Just yesterday I was at this point while moving house on my own after a breakup while trying to keep up with work. I called a girlfriend of mine, broke down and cried. She listened a while, said go make a cup of tea and walk outside. Breathe deeply, think about what is ahead and not behind. Take 15 minutes. Make an achievable plan. Got me through the day and it all got done. Thanks to the friends who helped by listening first. The tea was great too. Panman1979 replying to that. I find it impossible. The women I have dated or have been close to see it as a weakness, or at least that is my perception of follow-up events. I've lost family members in the past few months. I've had to leave my country of birth for unfailing theft and having gangs try to kill me. I am alone in a foreign country right now and believe that the only way to deal with things is alone. TK Quillart replying to that. I live with chronic depression, so this can happen at any moment. I prefer to deal with my emotions alone though, so I don't have to explain something unexplainable every time it happens. When I do need someone, however, my wife is always around and she's the same, so she gets it. Depravedaltus replying to that. Yes, I do, and I know I need professional help. But I also think part of the problem is that men are accepted to let life just bounce off them. So we spend our whole lives believing that we're not allowed to get sad. What a Salmon 97 replying to that. This reminds me of a TikTok I saw recently. There was a baby and a little boy. And the little boy was thirsty and wanted water, but I guess was having trouble communicating it to the mother so she'd know what he wanted. He pitched a total fit and tried pulling away from her. She held on to him gently and looked at him with such calm eyes. She waited out the fit and got him to focus on his words. She was calm and compassionate the whole time. When she finally got him to figure out what he needed, she held him close, praised him for figuring it out, and got what he wanted for him. By the end of it, I was crying without knowing why. It took me a bit to figure out It was because I never got anything like that. Seb the person 69420 replying to that. Many, many times. The closest I have to that when it comes to people I'm comfortable venting about that shit to is talking to some friends online before. After having a good cry. And despite the fact that I can't see them IRL. The way they treat me online is something I don't get very much IRL. And I love them for that. Sadly, it can only be that at the moment, but I can manage it as it is until later. Xjix replying to that. Oh, dude, all the time. We're all carrying weight. Whatever our plumbing or identity, there just isn't anyone. My family took a vote when I was wee and signed me over the government. I bounced from foster home to facility to foster home. I have had friends over the years, but not many who stayed in touch, and even with those, I don't feel so much welcome as tolerated. Like there's a countdown timer that starts when we set eyes on each other when we're hanging out. And it's good for an hour or so. And they're out. That's it? Mule Roni Mare replying to that. Some people say they want men to be vulnerable and open, but the reality is not so simple. Most women seem to actually expect an emotionally secure and stable man who, despite being so stoic, loves his mom even more and will cry in front of her when she dies. That is very different from the freedom to be complex emotional creatures with insecurities and weakness, who are scared or overwhelmed and don't know what to do, who have trauma and baggage, and be allowed to reveal this self without being seen and treated differently and viewed as lesser for it. Thankfully, there are plenty of women who will accept their partner as a human being like every other and respond to vulnerability and weakness with care and love. These women deserve to be celebrated and held up as a role model to the rest because this is not the norm. Even among women who criticize toxic masculinity and bottling up emotion. Ravix Ridamaki replying to that. Nope, it wouldn't do anything good and people wouldn't even care anyway. A job is always a good distraction for me. And I always prioritize my job before anything else as a professional. I learned to handle my own breakdown myself. Relying on people would always disappoint you in the end. Deep down we're selfish and insecure creature. Nessa Monsty 17 replying to that. You're allowed to cry. This is a new age, and we are don't having our men inside and not being allowed the liberty to express their tears or heartbreak. We want a man with feeling, so go ahead and express that. You will be surprised that woman will embrace you. And even some guy friends will too and even relate to that. It is manly to express emotions and tears. It doesn't stop you from being a man. Krama's replying to that. Yup, I'm currently feeling that at this moment, but I don't have really anyone to talk to. And the ones I really don't want to bother them with my problems that I've kept bottled up for years, and I feel like they may judge me or think less of me. I wish things were okay, but they're not. I've learned just to take it one day at a time and try to keep your mind occupied. I try to be a happy, joking person to everyone around me, and I prefer to keep that going instead of them thinking of me differently. Paracord 69 replying to that. Crying has always been a really tough thing for me. I grew up in a men don't cry type household. Well, really that was just my dad, but regardless I've always hated crying as a result. My last girlfriend I dated for a while over a year. And during that time I moved out for the first time and she spent the night the first night I was on my own, and I broke down sobbing in her arms. I don't know where it came from, but it was like the last 10 years of pain all came up in one instant and I just lost it. Thankfully she was a really good person and stayed by my side until I felt better. I will not lie. It was the best feeling in the world despite how miserable I was. It was nice to know there was someone I could be vulnerable around and feel safe. I really hope I get another chance at that. Alan replying to that. All the damn time. The amount of stress I am under and the constant feeling of my life spiraling out of control, I am always on the verge of a breakdown. Thankfully, my fiancé is there for me when I need to let it out, just like I am for her. We are each other's rock. Nebulaniac replying to that. I've full-blown cried, but mostly out of frustration towards her. Then I told her I was done with that. And next time it gets bad enough for me to want to cry. She's gone. She's moving out in a week. I'm done with her games. Riggedy Rick Sanchez replying to that. It's not abnormal to seek someone who is understanding and really just open to listen to another person's situation. Life can get heavy and overwhelming, but it's how we choose to deal with those moments that helps direct our lives. If you feel like you could use an ear to talk to, you know better than anyone else who that could be in your circle. If there aren't any emotionally available people in your immediate circle, there are always people online like me. Support groups, and just group-oriented activities in general that you could try out. I've had luck meeting and talking with kind people by doing things like pool laps, yoga classes, hiking, biking, or even just getting coffee. On more trying days, you could always arrange to talk with a professional who is experienced with the human experience condition, as they'll be more able to better help guide you through turbulent feelings. You aren't alone in this. None of us are. So try to be the kindest person you can be to yourself and others. Wishing you well. Stoicum3 Roar replying to that. I feel like that all the time. Used to think it's just me being weird. Usually it's when I'm stressed or something's bothering me. I've always considered myself relatively more sensitive, but not exactly sure why I feel like that. Not saying that it's a good thing or a bad thing, but I feel it's incredibly annoying and gets in the way of getting stuff done. Feels fake and like I'm being a crybaby despite having the things and great people I already have in my life. Kakamanono replying to that. 5 years ago, my uncle, who was extremely close to me, died. If he was in the country, he'd make sure to see me and he'd come visit me on my birthday every year or call if he couldn't. He couldn't have children and he always say I was as close to a son as he would get. We liked all the same stuff and he was a huge part of my life. My siblings were jealous about how close we were. He died from lung cancer and it broke me a little bit. First time I ever cried in front of a girlfriend. We had been together for 2.5 years at that point. She started making little comments about it to her friends after that happened. Made me feel embarrassed and ashamed. We broke up for different reasons a few months later, but I don't think I can or would ever do that again. Dajudum in replying to that. I've been depressed before, but this never was something I needed or contemplated. I have never had this feeling or urge in my life. But I have a large family and we are emotionally healthy. We discuss our problems with each other, problem solve, and have each other's backs. My assumption. I've never had that feeling or urge because I already have an emotionally health support system all the time. Dragon Magician replying to that. Almost every second of every day. For the past 2 years, but the women I dated the last couple years I didn't trust enough. The woman I love now had that amount of trust. But I'm keeping it together by being busy most of the time. 2 jobs. Multiple game servers that I either own or am admin for. Chores. If we ever had the time, I would for sure do exactly that. The Birdman 333 replying to that. Literally every day. I am only 22 and I was just getting my life started when I suddenly developed a debilitating chronic, likely lifelong illness. I am now completely bedbound and forced to move back into my parents'. I am losing everything I worked so hard for. I don't even have the energy to cry due to the illness and some days I can't even speak. The illness is complicated and misunderstood, and a lot of doctors have gaslit me for being lazy or having mental problems. I don't, at least not to this extent. I don't think depression causes you to lose your balance when you stand, last I checked. Don't get me wrong, my family has been supportive, but they don't understand this illness. And no one will unless they get it. It sucks the energy out of you. I can't tolerate sound or much stimulation, so no music, YouTube, Netflix, games, anything. Most days I have a blindfold on and rest through the day and eat when I can. I want to cry. I wish I could feel emotions, but I can't. It takes too much out of me. I wish I could cry alone. I would love that. Creepy Floor 1745 replying to that. My husband does this. He cries about his kids growing up and away from him. He cries if he feels his emotional needs aren't being met. I can be stern or hard, but when he cries, I do comfort him and tell him it's normal to be sad, but also see the positive things too. I've never known a man to cry so much. I have a brother, a dad, and an ex-husband, and each have had different patterns of sadness and crying. Very normal to cry, especially when with someone you're in close emotional intimacy with. Babylon 331 replying to that. So often. I am the primary caregiver to 3 granddaughters, 4, 6, and 15. Needless to say, I'm tough, but there are times when the tears come out of nowhere. A few weeks ago, I lost it, and the 6-year was the only one there. I tried to hide it. She sat down with me and said, "It's okay, Graham. I will help you. I'm getting big now." She smoothed my hair and hugged the hell out of me. Then she started picking up and cleaning. Made me a PB and honey. I had to. The chef will cook replying to that. Yeah. Or sometimes I'll get the random feeling to just drop to the floor and cry. I never do, and the feeling comes from out of nowhere. Like cleaning the kitchen or something, and the urge will just hit me. I'm sure it's just suppressed emotions I'm not sure how to deal with, so I just move past them. But I feel you. You're not alone. Scuttlebutt266 replying to that. I do about once or twice a month. I turned 37 in a month. Since 2010 I have struggled with the abuse my siblings and I endured by our father. I always knew what happened, but in the last decade incidents will hit me cranked up to 11 and I like flashback. It's weird to say it is PTSD, but I do think if it is not, then it has to be close. I have been to counseling and a psychiatrist for the last 7 years. About lost my marriage before it started. In the last few years I have lost friends and deconstructed my religion. I would not say I am whole, but the fat is cut away. I am also a nurse and have common sense, which means working here in the Midwest with religious and right-wing nut jobs that constantly outright abuse or passive-aggressively demean you. It's especially been hard with COVID deniers after seeing people die. All this being said, yes, it's normal. We do not give people permission to feel in the US. I constantly struggle because when I get passionate it is constantly perceived like anger. I have a big heart and it is overwhelming sometimes. My father in particular thinks my brother and I are weak for being medicated and seeing counselors. Fuck that. You need to cry, you fucking cry. If that makes you weak, then you are in good fucking company. You know what leads to beating and abusing your loved ones. Not fucking understanding your emotions. Fuck anyone that tells you to stuff that shit down or it's not manly. My father has 4 out of 5 kids not speaking to him and no friends. No one will weep for him when he passes. Do not end up like my father. FORSISSTRONG replying to that. Definitely. Right now going through it with my dad having cancer. Going through chemo to hopefully help. Radiation for a tumor that has appeared around his spine and a small spot in his already half-atrophied liver. Watching him losing weight like crazy and sleeping a lot sucks. I've caught myself crying at home, in bed, at work, and in the car. I've cried in my dad's arms too. I stop myself here and there, but sometimes I just let it out. Between work, being the only paycheck coming in, and now this. You just gotta let out the stresses.